What have you got there?
We're picking nettles. I think the
nettles.
girls want. What do you want? Make nettle tea, right? But we're not entirely sure if we're picking the right nettles.
I used to work with some people with mental health problems.
Yeah.
And this lady used to go out and pick nettles.
So if your man's not doing enough, you need to leave him.
The Lord of the Penis. You're a sign of infertility. Go away.
Bow.
No, stop. And I don't have to, well, obviously, you know, sorry, increasing blood flow and circulation.
So they would suck on her teats and they...
Ow! Oh.
Hello, and welcome back to Gobs and Goblets with me, Maddie.
And me, Hannah.
So today is actually the final episode of season 1. So we're wrapping it off with a bang on Valentine's Day. It's the only love you need. Maddie and Hannah, what more? What more can you ask for? So yeah, we've come to an end of the history of us, but don't worry guys, there's a lot more to come.
A lot more.
But yeah, with Valentine's Day coming up, we thought it'd be a good idea to talk about Hannah's most hated day of the year at the moment.
Yeah.
We have already had a couple of drinks because I feel like that's very...
It was very appropriate. I couldn't stand looking at all the Valentine's Day in the store today anyway, sorry.
She had an absolute tantrum when we were going around Tesco. We just needed some lunch and it was, can't see any of this right now. But yes!
Yeah. Anyway, should we get into it?
I think we should get into the history. So, we're going back to a time which we have actually spent a lot of time in season 1, and that's the Romans, because essentially they are the inventors of everything. So, the Catholic Church sees that there are at least 3 St. Valentines. They will be martyred, but we're going to look at a legend of one of them specifically. We're going back to when the emperor was Claudius II. Now, at this time, he believed that men without women and children were the most efficient soldiers. Which, I don't know why that is, because in my opinion, if you've got a wife and kids to get back to, you should be fighting 10 times harder. I don't know though. Although maybe they're a bit distracted whilst they're on the field. So anyway, he felt that the men worked the best when they had no other priorities in their life. So what he did was he actually outlawed marriage. He said, you cannot...
No.
You cannot take part in this act.
The Catholic Church.
The Catholic
Church.
Well, no, actually it was the emperor.
Well, the emperor, who was Catholic.
However, Valentine, he was like, oh, I don't really know if I like this so much. So he carried on marrying people in secret. Yeah, he would get young men in and whoever they fancied or loved at the time, and he'd be like, right, I'll marry you too, so come back here with me. Obviously, good on him, but a bit silly, because he did in fact get caught out. And when he got caught out, it was like, well, Claudius said, you're gonna die. So, when he was in prison, well, when one of the St. Valentines was in prison, because there's a lot of them and they all mix into each other, legend states that he had actually fallen in love with one of the jail guards' daughters. So he wrote her a letter and he signed it from your Valentine. And people still say that to this day, which is crazy. And she's drinking again.
I'm like crying, sorry.
You're crying?
No.
Anyway, he wrote the first ever Valentine letter.
I'm fine. Sorry, he wrote the first Valentine letter to who?
To this lady that he was in love with. And, well, it obviously didn't really last because he ended up getting the kill. So that concluded that.
Yeah.
Well, some historians believe that it was because he died in February. Other people say it's because of the festival Lupercalia. And now, this was a festival held in the, again, Roman times. We haven't moved forward from there yet. But essentially what would happen over this festival, which was between the 13th and the 15th of February, is that, well, there were a lot of sacrifices. And this festival was based all around fertility and, you know, basically making the next generation. So the reason that they had it was in memory of one of the gods, Faunus. And it was also notably because of Romulus and Remus, who were the founders of Rome, and they were raised by a she-wolf, and this all happened around the same time, I believe. So
What's a she-wolf?
it was basically like a wolf that raised them, and they would suck.
Fact or fiction?
It's a myth.
Oh,
So they would. Roman mythology here. So they would suck on her teats, and she raised Romulus and Remus, who were then the founders of Rome, and people celebrated this all together. I was going to say Fergus, it's not Fergus. Faunus. Sorry guys, Prosecco and me. Like this, so close. Faunus was the god of agriculture. So what people would do is they would sacrifice a goat for fertility and a dog for purification.
do you know why it was a goat and why it was a dog?
A dog for purification and a goat for fertility.
Yeah, but do you know why?
I don't know why they represented it. Sorry.
Oh, okay,
But that's what those animals symbolised.
Right.
So this is where it gets a bit dark, and you know, on Gobs and Goblets we're all here for a bit of a sacrificial story. No, we're not, but you get the point. Basically, once the goat was sacrificed, what they would do is they would cut up strips of it. Of apparently the hind, but I'm not entirely sure what the hind is. Some sources said the hind, others said skin and blood. And it gets a bit crazy. Yeah. They would go around whipping the women with these long strips of goat because this was supposed to make them more fertile. And according to history, and I've got to be honest with you, I'm not sure if I believe this, the women would line up and they would because it's going to make them fertile.
Well, of course, that's what they would have wanted.
It is. They would line up and they would, let the men playfully whip them with this, and they would believe. They would also do it to the plants. No, I don't know why I said it they would also do it to the plants, so it's okay, women are not like plants. I'm talking way too much. But they would whip the agriculture and the women so that it would be fertile for the next year. On top of this, after the whipping ceremony was done, what they would do is the women would place their names into a big urn, which is, I'm guessing, like a big bowl. Yeah. And the bachelors of the city would go and pick a name out of a hat. Now the name, not the hat, the urn. The name that they would pick out would be the person that they would be with for the next year. And in a lot of cases, this ended up in marriage. My question to history, though, is if it didn't work out, do you just put your name back in next year? I'm assuming so. But yeah, that's how compatibility started. Now, as with other things in the Romans, obviously we looked at Saturnalia in the previous episode, which was to do with Christmas. There was the Christianization period. So what they did was they wanted to make Lupercalia a more Christian event. So they ended up dedicating it to the martyrs that were St. Valentines, and it became sort of the first events of Valentine's Day as we know it today.
Wow. Also
in the 5th century, you had the Pope Galatins. I think I'm saying that wrong. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced it. Who was a French pope at the time. Now, Galatins or Galatins means lover of women. Now, we all know many men that are lovers of women. So he was another sort of advocate for the previous celebrations that had been had in Rome. He was a pope. So it kind of all followed through with the Christianization period. And that was also came into play with Valentine's Day. Next, we're moving to our favourite time ever, the Middle Ages, the Dark Periods. So basically, it's believed that Valentine's Day was a thing before the 1400s. However, it's not really recorded. Okay. But there is a poet called Geoffrey Chaucer. Again, I fear I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'm so sorry. But he ended up writing a poem about Valentine's Day. Not specifically, but he included the whole process in his poem that came out in 1375 that was called The Parliament of Fools. In the 1400s, which I just mentioned, basically, this is where the first Valentine letter was properly recorded and is still used as evidence today. So now we're actually going to go back to the 100-year war between France and England. Crazy stuff, huh? So basically what happened in 1415, October 25th, you had the Battle of Agincourt. Now, this is a crazy time. You had Henry V, he was a very young ruler at this time. He managed to defeat he managed to defeat the French in the north of France, and he captured the Duke of Orleans named Charles, and he took him back to the Tower of London where he was imprisoned there. Now, how does this link to Valentine's Day? Well, I'm going to tell you. Basically, he had a wife back home in France, and he actually wrote a love letter to her, which is known, notably to this day, as the first existing love letter for Valentine's Day. And he wrote it to her. Sadly, I'm going to assume it's sad. Well, he died, so it is sad. He was killed. Or he died, and he never saw her again. But he wrote her a love letter. Also, another reason that February the 14th was Valentine's Day, it gets a bit weird here, is it was celebrated because in the Middle Ages, they thought that the 14th of February was the day that bird mating started. Yeah, I know. So that's why they called it a day of romance. Me personally, I don't like birds. So it's really...
That's so random, sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's like any animal can mate and you don't want to be like Valentine's Day, but bird mating, and it's like, oh, yeah.
Love makes you fly high, what can I say?
Oh my God, you're a genius.
That's probably not true. Anyway,
gonna cry again. But this leads us quite nicely into the medieval period.
Oof.
Where things get really weird.
Bizarre.
We can both tell you that for free. So the reason it links into this is because at that time they had a lot of love potions. It all started getting a bit crazy. It was a very common practice between commoners and even nobles. They wanted people to fall so deeply in love with them.
They were doing the most.
They were doing the most. So one of the things that they would use would be pigeons, blood and heart. And the list went on for the things that they would use in these potions. You had human remains, including ground up bones, pubes, menstrual blood. There was a case where somebody got caught out as a witch, and she had been found with linens soaked in menstrual blood, and she had given it to her daughter's partner to drink, and he drank it. And they basically felt that this would, solidify it and bring people together. But yeah, human remains was a thing. Animal remains, you had deer heart, you had snake fat, you had
everything.
Literally anything vile you could think of.
And people were digging up graves to get these human remains.
Like, it's crazy. Like, history is mad. And the thing is as well, right, people knew the dangers that came along with this. They knew it was toxic. They knew it was bad for you. Yet for love, they would do anything. So if your man's not doing enough, you need to leave him. Probably not if he's getting human remains. It all sounds a bit... I've made myself sound like a weirdo now. I swear I'm not. But yeah, it was... Yeah, the most was done, and when I was reading all this information, my jaw was quite frankly on the floor for the entirety.
I had to pick it back up for her.
She did. She went...
Literally. They also did things, well, they called them love cakes, but I don't know how lovely they were. People would bake cakes naked, and they would get the dough and rub it on the sweat around their body. This could have been sweat anywhere, even genitalia. I mean, even your armpits would be bad enough, but like just the thought of
I feel quite sick, actually.
Yeah. Luckily, we haven't done any recipe like that today. Just to clarify.
Chef, have you got anything to tell us?
We'll get onto that later. But yeah, no, it was really, really nasty.
It was.
Yeah. All for the sake of love. I mean,
was it worth
what's the
it?
point? Absolutely not. No, I'm telling you now, it's really not.
Oh, darling. We're going to carry on moving forward. And we're going to go to the 1800s. Now, this was a time where lots of people would give their loved ones tokens, or they would give handwritten letters to the people that they loved the most. And now, I'm a bit of a sucker, I'm going to be so honest. When it comes to written letters, I love it. I'm a hopeless romantic. I try to play off the fact that I'm really not, but I so am. Like, a written letter, you got me sorted. Comes to the 1900s, people start getting lazy, okay? Apparently it wasn't so cool to be like, oh my God, I feel like this for someone. So they stopped doing that, and printing technology became a big thing. Obviously you had the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, it had expanded a lot, and by the 1900s, they were making print cards. So people started purchasing them instead of writing written letters. And then instead of doing the most heartfelt things ever, they would get a card and they would just write like a little note in it, and it would be to your Valentines. And yeah, that sort of rounds off the main part of the history, essentially. As we've established in every other episode, people get lazy. They don't want to do the most.
My ex had to Google what to write in my cards because I told him how much I liked nice written cards.
Maybe it's a
girl
thing.
GPT, that's now our issue. They're going to be speaking about that in a few hundred years. Yeah, people used to use their brains, and now they used AI.
If I get an AI written message, I'm going to be
You're done
fuming.
for. You are done for.
Anyway.
You really have nothing to say about me. Anyway.
The most to say about us.
Literally.
Just cheers. You can really tell we've had a couple at this point. Bottle of Prosecco down. On to the next.
No, you know what we're on to next?
You tell me, my darling.
Aphrodisiacs. Woof! Oh my. Do you know what I've learned from this? I mean, when you think aphrodisiacs, surely what's coming to your head now? Oysters, chocolates, champagne, all the fancy schmancy stuff. No. Aphrodisiacs have existed since the beginning of time. And when I say most things were considered an aphrodisiac at some point in history.
Really?
Like, I'd say 60 to 70% of all things that exist, at some point, something was linked to some sort of potency there.
Maybe everybody was just really horny, so they were just giving an
everyone was trying to find an excuse to get it on, I guess, you know?
So, I'm ready to hear about this.
Yeah, well, so, okay, I'm going to start off with where does the actual term aphrodisiac come from? Now, I feel a bit stupid now, but it actually comes from the Greek goddess of love, Aphrodite, which makes complete aphrodisiac, Aphrodite. So it actually comes from her. Now, obviously, I'm going to talk about some that I had no idea were considered as aphrodisiacs, but I'm going to start off with oysters, the one that we all know, the one that's been debated for a long time. Does it actually get you in the mood? Well, I'm going to tell you now. So oysters, and their relevance to being an aphrodisiac is actually all based on a legend. And it comes from the legend of Aphrodite and how she came to be. So apparently when she emerged from the sea in an oyster shell, and then she gave birth to the god Eros, and he was Eros or Eros? Eros. Anyway, Eros was the god of romantic, erotic, you know, all your sexy love, that was your god. So she gave birth to him in this oyster shell, and that's kind of where the story of oysters being aphrodisiacs comes from.
Interesting. Also, did you know Eros was the inspiration for Cupid?
Can you tell us more?
No, not really.
Oh.
No.
No, but
Basically, he was the inspiration, and a couple of hundreds of years later, they ended up changing it into a chubby little angel baby that would. Because
Really?
Eros used to have a bow and arrow. I was going to say a gun. Sorry, that's terrible. a bow and arrow, and he would shoot unsuspected lovers and cast little spells on them. Yeah, and also Aphrodite being his mum.
Yeah.
It's most likely, but it's debated. He could have had other parents, and Zeus could have been his dad and his granddad.
I mean, it was all so ancestral, I
Yeah,
guess.
well, ancient Greece, do you know what I'm saying?
It was just drama upon drama. But anyway, I guess, you know, the real question is do the oysters actually do anything? So there's no, like, concrete, well, there is some concrete evidence, but there's no evidence being like, oh yeah, this definitely gets you in the mood. However, there is a scientific study, it was an American-Italian study from 2005, and whenever people talk about oysters, this is kind of the study that's cited the most. And basically what they found is that oysters contain 2 types of amino acids which help with...
Testosterone?
No, not testosterone,
No.
but the product...
Sorry.
basically with sex hormones.
Uh-huh.
And then they also contain zinc, and zinc is really good for the production of testosterone.
Okay.
So those 2 factors, yeah, maybe...
I've had fried oysters before, but the first,
Ooh.
I had
They're
them.
nice?
Had them from Poor Boys. They were quite good actually.
Okay.
But the first time I tried a raw oyster, it is raw, isn't it?
Yes,
was
raw.
with Hannah in Barcelona. She didn't have one.
I'm not the biggest fan.
It just tastes like the sea.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it doesn't really do much for
didn't
me.
really change my mood very much.
Might as well go for a dip at that point, yeah. But yeah, so what am I going to tell you about next? Oh, right. This one's quite something. No. We're going to talk about lettuce.
Lettuce?
Lettuce. We're going to talk about lettuce a lot in this episode.
Oh my god,
So-
really?
Really? So lettuce was an aphrodisiac for the ancient Egyptians.
What?
And it gets quite crazy.
Oh my god.
So basically, lettuce was associated with the god of, again, what I found really interesting, what you were talking about, is fertility and agriculture. There's a link always.
Throughout everything.
Throughout everything, because it's birth, isn't it?
It is.
It's birth, it's growth, it's all this beautiful stuff that love should create, but it doesn't for all. Anyway, so we had our Egyptian god Min. Now, he was the god of agriculture and fertility, and he was associated with lettuce. Now, why, you may be asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 reasons. The first one isn't really like that deep, but the first one is obviously when lettuce grows, it's straight and growing up, so you can imagine what that is. And but the second reason, also when you see Min, I meant to say, we'll put a picture for you now. Maybe you want to look away. Basically, he's holding his package, and it's quite. I'm just saying it how it is, and it's really quite a package. He was also known for loads of names, like he was like the Great of Love, and also the Lord of the Penis, is what Min was known as. And yes, this might be a funny episode, but I'm sorry, that's what he was. So yeah, so with Min, the second reason he was associated with lettuce. Now this was so interesting. So when you break a lettuce leaf, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, when I realised this, I was like, oh my god, that's so true. Basically, a milky sort of liquid is released. So if you ever snap a piece of lettuce in half, sometimes you have like a milky residue that comes out sometimes. It's very small, but something comes out.
Interesting. I've seen it with other plants, but...
Yeah, well, with lettuce, it's a thing. And this was supposed to represent Min's semen. You're so childish.
I should not have done this
It's
with,
all
with a couple of
natural.
glasses.
And believe it or not, lettuce comes from the Latin word lactuca, which means lettuce, and yeah, but that derives from the word lac, which means milk. like the milk that's kind of released when you break the lettuce.
Oh wow!
But is that not incredible? That the word lettuce comes from the word milk.
Crazy! Yeah,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have thought that.
No, I
I
would
think
have
fresh
never
and
guessed.
crispy, but
That could be another reason why it was associated. And yeah, and then, you know, they would have, with Min, they would basically, before like the harvest season, they would carry a statue of Min, you know, through the harvest, basically to bless it. And they would call this the departure of Min. So basically to bless the harvest and make sure that it be fruitful and successful. Now,
Wow.
we ain't finished with lettuce. Not only
Guys,
was it
there's more.
there's more. Not only was it an aphrodisiac, it was also an anti-aphrodisiac.
How can it be both?
Oh, let me tell you, anti-aphrodisiacs, I got stuck on the cupboard, is also known as an aphrodisiac. That's also what an aphrodisiac's not name. And yeah, so the Egyptians, they were all for it, but the Greeks and the Romans, yeah, they were not having lettuce. Like, they had it, but they knew the effects of it, and they weren't messing with it. So basically, do you remember Pythagoras? What was it? A squared plus b squared equals c squared? From memory. I was awful at maths at school.
Pythagoras theorem. Yeah, I was terrible at maths as well.
Anyway, well, that guy, you know, he was a mathematician. He was also a, what's the word? Like, when you, not physiology.
Physician.
Not physician. Philosophy.
Philosopher. He was a philosopher.
Thank you. Yeah, he wasn't a fan of lettuce. So what Pythagoras said was that it relaxed desire, and he also called it the plant of the eunuchs. Now, I didn't know what a eunuch was. A eunuch is a castrated man.
I told Hannah this just beforehand. Yeah, somebody else would castrate them, or they would castrate themselves.
No, that was...
So they would get rid of, essentially, their willies or their balls.
Imagine doing... I don't even imagine.
I'm sure it'd be incredibly painful, but, you know...
You'd die, wouldn't you?
All in the name of religion as well. It was a way for them to prevent their sexual desires.
Don't know why you're wincing.
We're being sympathetic.
No, but I think that you can learn to control your mind first, maybe. Like, imagine being so drastic, you have to cut your willy off because you can't control it. I know somebody who should do that, but anyway, karma's coming his way. So, anyway, lettuce. So we're going to go back to our mythology a bit, okay? So we're now going to introduce Adonis. Now, Adonis was the god of fertility, beauty, and vegetation. Now, as the legend goes, well, actually before that, so he was kind of in a bit of a love affair, in a bit of a, with...
Sticky one.
It was a sticky one, with the goddess herself, goddess of love, Aphrodite, again, and the goddess of the, well, the queen of the underworld, I should say, Persephone.
I love Persephone.
Man, this got sticky.
Did
So
it?
basically, one day, now there's 3 different versions to this story, so I'll tell each version. One day, Adonis was hiding in a lettuce patch. Why? I don't know. Maybe because he's the god of vegetation, he just decided to chill there with his veggies. I don't know.
Learned lettuces are a bit cheeky, so...
Yeah. Well, anyway, unfortunately, a wild boar came along and killed him in this lettuce patch.
Boars are petrifying, I've got to be honest. Sorry, that's a bit of a tangent, but... Oh, are you kidding? If a boar came charging at me, I think I'd, like, cry.
I'd run first.
I'd cry and then run.
But yeah, that's story number 1. Story number 2 is a boar killed him, not on the lettuce patch, but then Aphrodite came and placed him on the lettuce patch. I don't know why she did that. And then the third version of the story was that he died in the lettuce patch. He wasn't killed by the boar, but he just died there. And then Aphrodite was like so overwhelmed by grief that she went to the lettuce patch to grieve and also to basically control her desires because she's the goddess of love. Yeah. So basically, with this story, lettuce basically became this symbol of not only death amongst the youth, but more importantly, a symbol of impotence.
Impotence?
AKA
infertility.
Infertility.
Okay, because impotence and infertility are slightly different. Impotence if you haven't got a clue going up there. If you're impotent,
but I think
you're a bit
that
stupid.
I think it also relates to infertility. If if you're impotent?
The more you know. I think our cameraman's looking it up. Hannah's right.
Yeah.
Didn't do my research, guys.
So yeah, for impotence. So you had a Greek poet called Sappho, and he even composed songs about this legend, about, I think it was called well, I haven't got the songs now,
I was going to say,
sorry.
did you learn it? I'd love to see it.
No, I'm not singing in another episode. I'm absolutely never again.
Where's the ukulele? Come on.
Oof, not here today. But anyway, he composed songs about, they were called the Adonian, after Adonis, the Adonian lettuce gardens of Athens. And what would happen is people would go there deliberately to grow lettuces to watch them wither and die. So the Greeks were having nothing to do with lettuce.
Oh, that was so good. Did you hear what?
Let us continue. Sorry, I just stole that from our cameraman. But yes, so they wanted the lettuce to die because it was like, you're a sign of infertility. Go away.
Bow.
No, stop. Anyway, oh
We've
God.
been listening to too much SL today.
Bunsen burner, got the room heated.
However, I know I'm talking a lot of myths. I know I'm talking a lot of legends. There are actually some scientific facts back in this. Are you ready?
No. But you tell me anyway,
I'm
darling.
going to tell you. So, you know opium comes from poppies? Mm-hmm. So the liquid that is secreted from the poppies is called the latex. And basically the way you get opium is you kind of scratch the seeds, you create an incision, the latex comes out, yeah?
Is that where latex is from?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I
carry on.
don't believe, but I had to Google it because I was like, I don't know what the latex of, but it's the liquid. So it's like a yellow kind of residue comes out and then this dries and that's what opium is. So obviously this has something called soporific properties. Now soporific basically means it makes you feel drowsy or sleepy, opium. Now that milky substance, which is secreted from lettuce, is actually proven to have, obviously much, much more mild, but also soporific properties.
And what does... so it just makes you sleepy and...
Sleepy and drowsy.
I should take some of that.
Which,
on,
well, not if you
Somalia.
want to get in the mood.
Oh, well.
Yeah, if we're talking in that context. But yeah, if you want to sleep,
If you want to sleep, there you go.
eat some lettuce. So it was actually a Greek physician called Dioscorides who basically said it was Sopophorus, the word, sorry, it's the Prosecco, the word, what I just said, basically, he backed that, so it was true.
Wow.
Now I'm going to quickly tell you about the Romans, because they also had something to say about lettuce.
I love the Romans.
So let us continue. The Romans. So there was a Roman natural philosopher called Pliny the Elder, and he would actually prescribe people lettuce after they ate foods that would aphrodisiacs or foods that would, boost energy or whatever. For example, rocket. Rocket was considered one of the most important aphrodisiacs of the Romans. Even so, the god of fertility, Priapus, rocket was sacred to him. Pliny would prescribe people lettuce after they ate these foods. And then what became very common during the empire was giving people lettuce after meals so they could calm down and basically ease them to sleep. So what they would do with the lettuce is they would have it with either oil, vinegar or garum. If you remember from our ketchup episode, we've mentioned garum so many times. Or sometimes they would have all three of these things on the lettuce together. Now this is actually where salad comes from, because they would season the lettuce so heavily, and salad comes from the Latin word sal, which means salt. Seasoning.
Wow! The more you know. I love history.
So there you go. That's a bit about lettuce for you. I mean, I was blown away.
Yeah, I'm blown away
Honestly,
too.
blown away. And we haven't finished with other things. So very quickly, an aphrodisiac, so an anti one, was actually coffee.
See, I've heard this before.
Yeah.
I love coffee though. Like, it's seriously, I genuinely... Hannah knows this. I don't function if I don't have caffeine in my body.
I have to bring her a coffee in the morning for her to wake up and get out of bed.
And you know what that is? That's love. And on today's Valentine's episode, we've just displayed to you what real love is. Every single morning, I wake up at Hannah's. There's a coffee on the side of the bed. She's come prepared. She's brought me everything that I need, and I will never treasure somebody as much as her because of the coffee. Oh wait, no, I'm not supposed to swear, am I?
Anyway, let me tell you about this coffee. So basically, in 1674, the women of London were basically coffee started getting a really bad reputation. The ladies were believing that it was making the men impotent and also causing them to chat too much.
Oh, I chat way too much. That makes sense.
Could do a whole. I mean, we're gonna do a coffee episode one day, but the amount we could cover on this protest is actually crazy. Like it was not protest, sorry, petition. But yeah, the ladies weren't happy about this. Now, something that I believe, I've created my own assumption, so don't take this as historical fact. But
Oh dear.
coffee was had at coffee houses, so it was like
cafes,
but they used to be called coffee houses. Now, who also happened to be at coffee houses? Sex workers. So I don't think it was the coffee, I think it was... Anyway, so, right, that's our anti-aphrodisiacs I'm going to cover for today. I'm going to finish with 2 more aphrodisiacs.
Okay.
Now, vanilla.
Shut up. Are you kidding?
It gets better. So, when Spanish conquistadors went over and they found the vanilla pod, they thought it resembled the female genitalia. So they gave it the name, well, the Spanish name is vainilla, and it's because the word vaina in Spanish
I've just added 2 and 2 together.
means, I don't know if you have
okay.
a pod, like a vanilla pod, or a sheath. Now, a sheath is, a case for a knife or a sword. And I don't have to, well, obviously, sorry, I'm just saying. But yeah, the word, I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to say vagina. But the word vagina comes from a sheath.
That's what I'd added together.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, so the word vanilla relates to vagina. But, like, when you say sex is vanilla, I was like,
oh my god, that means it's boring.
We have the ice cream industry to blame for that, because I don't think the female genitalia is what's making it boring. That's all I'm going to say.
It's the ice cream industry, and we will do an episode on ice cream now.
We will. Now I'm going to round off with our final aphrodisiac and also the recipe we've done today. So obviously we're talking Valentine's Day, we're celebrating love. Maddie is my best friend. I love her very much. She means the world to me, Yeah, you do.
No, I'm getting emotional.
So, it's okay. So, Maddie a few weeks ago was like, can we make nettle soup? And it just came out of nowhere. I was like, whoa, why do you want to make nettle soup?
No, because it's a very, it was very popular in the olden days. It's not so consumed now. It's hardly ever consumed now, but it was really, really popular in times gone by.
It was. Well, nettles been around for many, many years, and people have known about their properties for many, many years. So anyway, turns out monks in the Middle Ages, so 500 CE to 1500 CE, they were actually forbidden to eat nettles. They weren't allowed to eat anything to do with nettles because they were considered an aphrodisiac. And nettles have always been linked to basically giving strength and improving energy, and also increasing blood flow and circulation. In case no one's understanding it, I'll just make it clear. So anyway,
Sorry.
Apparently, if you put nettle and pepper together, it increases the virality of it. They were linked to kind of kidney health a lot.
Oh, wow.
Really good for kidney health. My dad used to say to me back in the day, my dad hates Valentine's Day. He was always like, oh, what's the point of celebrating, love on one day? And I completely agree. I think love should be celebrated every day. But he always said, sorry.
But we do love a good Valentine's Day.
Not right now. But anyway,
Sorry, yeah.
he was always like, if somebody gives you roses, that's so boring. And I was like,
do you know what? I kind of second that though.
It's
do you
true
know what I
because
mean?
it's so common. It's like everyone gets roses, get something else.
I want my favourite flower, not roses.
What, wisteria?
I would like a big...
Imagine they just bring you a branch of wisteria. Like,
I think I'd cry. My branch of wisteria in a letter, and I think I would die on the spot right there.
It's not that hard, guys.
It's not that
Anyway, So yeah, so I kind of went with that premise today, and instead of picking roses for Maddie or going to the shop to buy them, I literally went to the forest and picked her nettles to make her a nettle, not soup, but drink.
It was incredible. Like the experiences that we had
Oh my
today
gosh,
picking
guys.
nettles. You wouldn't believe, well, you saw some of it at the beginning of the episode, but
I think this calls for a story time.
It does call for a story time, and we're going to get right into it now. So basically, Hannah's out there, she's picking nettles. And I'm like, babes, that's not a nettle. And cameraman back there, he's saying, oh, this is a nettle over here. He was pointing at holly bushes. I'm like, Harry, mate, that's not a nettle.
No.
He's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, no, it's not. So then Hannah finds nettles. I'm thinking, okay, this is a nettle. But it looks really different at this time of year. Because normally nettle bushes are quite big. They can grow up
Yeah,
quite
and they
high.
were really low.
And they have this thing hanging off of them, which kind of is like a flower. I don't know. We'll insert a picture here and I'll do an arrow to where it is. But they didn't have them. So we were looking at these nettles, and Hannah, being the absolute soldier that she is and the dedicated lover as well, she whacks her hand on it and she goes to see if it will sting her. But it doesn't hit straight away.
No.
So she then was like, okay, no, it's actually these ones back here. It wasn't those ones. And I'm saying, it's not those ones. So then we end up finding the nettles that we needed.
Well, my finger started stinging about 2 minutes
So
later.
I
It's
was
been
like,
stinging for hours now.
you needed a dock leave. That's what.
You know, I used to get a pebble with water, because you know when you do like home like remedies when you're younger, you like do little potions and stuff with like mud and stuff.
Oh my
Did you
god,
never used to do that?
absolutely.
Yeah,
I was the mud queen.
literally. What I used to do, I remember my dad stung himself with stinging nettles, and I got like a pebble and I went to the river and I like dipped the pebble in the water and I put it, and it went away.
No, what you need is a dock leaf. Well, that could work as well, but a
Did
dock
work.
leaf, which always grows around nettles. So if you ever go nettle foraging,
Oh, that's handy.
there's always dock leaves that are near them, and you can use that and wipe it along you, and it will
Completely clear it.
completely clear it.
We didn't do that, but yeah.
But-
anyway.
Hannah then goes down to the riverfront, and and the funniest guy we've ever met, he comes along and he goes, bear in mind we're in Kent, we're not in London anymore.
Behave.
We love you, Kent. He's like, oh my gosh, what are you looking for? And we're like, nettles, we're making nettle wine, nettle soup, whatever, nettle tea. And then he's like, I knew somebody with mental health problems, and this is not funny. But basically it was used as a form of self-harm for this woman. But this is not the point of the story, we're moving forward. Anyway, Hannah's holding this thing of nettles, and she's like, we're not sure if this is nettles or not. He starts brushing his hand up and down it like this, and he's like...
And I said, don't hurt yourself. Meanwhile, he's like this. I was like, well, he's going to hurt himself now. What do I say? Because he first comes up and he's like, yeah, I once knew a girl with mental health problems. I thought, what are you trying to say about me? Like, I know I look mad right now, but it's just really uncalled for. I'm just trying to enjoy my Saturday morning. Mind your business. Anyway, we managed to capture the first half on camera, which is great.
And he wiped his hand up and down this, and he went, yeah, these are stinging nettles. So Hannah has officially brought back stinging nettles for us.
Yeah, and we're going to tell you about the recipe. So this isn't from anywhere, but basically in order to get rid of the sting, make sure you thoroughly wash your nettles first. I literally leaf by leaf, wear gloves, be careful. You're then going to boil your nettles, and this is what's going to remove the sting.
I so hope so, otherwise I'm going to have a mouth infection tomorrow.
Well, you better not. So yeah, boil them for a while just to be safe, and then you're going to come with your nettle liquid, and then we're going to add some pepper to it, and that's our recipe. Happy bloody Valentines.
Amen. Cheers to that, babes. People think they're getting, what, chocolates?
Poof.
Absolutely not.
Never could be us. Come on. And we're going to try it now. She didn't seem very happy.
I know, I am very excited, but obviously they've
Do
been
you know
out
what
in the
it
wild.
is? You know when anyone ever got you a present that you didn't like? It's the thought that counts.
You don't know me well enough if you give me a present I don't like, but you always hit the mark, babes. You always hit the mark, babes.
It's about the
Everybody hits the mark.
intention. Always.
I feel like that's got to get cut. No.
No, it's not about the intention.
It's not about the intention.
No,
It's about... If
Actions
you know
speak
that
louder than words.
Actions speak so much louder than words. And if your actions show that you care about somebody, you're sorted. And if you don't care about somebody,
Anyone can say
door's
words
over
to
there.
you. Anyone. We are right
remember
now.
that.
well-informed and highly researched that took hours of craft. But anyway.
It took hours and hours and hours. Please support and subscribe. We need it.
All right, see you guys in a mo.
Yay! Nettle time!
Hello guys, we're back with our nettle tea.
Looks like bad pee.
It does, on the theme of genitalia. Right, would you like some black pepper for more, was it vitality or virality?
What's the difference?
I don't know anymore.
We've had a couple of bottles of Prosecco at this point, so you're going to have to... That's such
a lovely
ASMR.
sound. All right. It smells of spinach, by the way. It smells really good.
I love spinach. Spinach is like my favourite food.
And with the black pepper?
It's nice.
Right, you ready?
And I'm scared I'm going to die.
It's just like a very light tea. Very nice.
No, I'm actually getting paranoid that I'm going to get sick. I have a fear of getting sick. I'm not being funny with you. But basically, because we picked this, as you saw in the beginning of the episode, from the bushes of the floor, I'm scared that a dog's peed on it, and we've boiled it and washed it and the whole lot, but I still think I'm going to die.
Guys, thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you for being part of season 1.
You're the real ones.
You are,
and when we blow up, you're who we're going to remember. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for season 2.
And you don't even know what's coming. One of my favourite time periods. And you think you know what it is. You're going to think it's the Middle Ages. It's not. The medieval period. It's not. The Normans. It's not. No, I didn't mean Normans. I meant the Vikings. Got all mixed up here. Too much wine. Prosecco.
And we won't be in the kitchen. So.
Anyway,
thank you so much, and hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, bye.
If someone isn't doing this for you, they should not be your Valentine. You're welcome.